It was supposed to be a perfect Saturday. The sun was out, music was playing low from a speaker, and the smell of grilled burgers floated through the air. Family, neighbors, and friends gathered around the pool, laughing and sipping their drinks. I stood there with a cold glass in my hand, smiling to myself, just happy to see everyone enjoying the day. That's when it happened. My wife leaned over to her little circle of friends, pointed straight at the pool boy, the tall, broad-shouldered guy skimming leaves from the water, and with a smirk plastered across her face, said loudly, "I'd gladly trade my husband for that guy." For a second, I thought I misheard. But then came the laughter, hers first, sharp and mocking, then her friends joining in, giggling like it was the funniest thing in the world. My chest tightened. I felt every head turn, every awkward glance in my direction, like I was some sort of punchline. I froze. My fingers tightened around the glass, my legs rooted in place. Should I laugh it off? Pretend I didn't hear it? Confront her right there in front of everyone? My face burned, my pride crumbled, and still she kept laughing, like my humiliation was her entertainment. In that moment, I realized the person I trusted most was also the one who could cut me deepest. But little did I know, this public humiliation was only the beginning of her betrayals. When I first met her, it felt like a dream come true. She walked into the room with a kind of confidence that pulled everyone's attention, but when she smiled at me, I swore the whole world faded. I wasn't the type who believed in love at first sight, but with her, it was different. She was funny, charming, and seemed to actually see me in a way nobody else ever had. In the early days, I went out of my way to make her happy. I worked long hours and still found the energy to plan little surprises, flowers after her tough exams, late-night coffee runs when she needed to study, weekend trips to give her a break from stress. When her parents doubted her career choice, I was the one who stood by her side, telling her she had what it took to prove them wrong. I thought that's what love meant: sacrifice, patience, loyalty. But looking back, the cracks were already there. She would casually compare me to other men. "Why can't you be more ambitious like my boss?" Or, "Look at how driven my friend's boyfriend is." She'd brush off my hobbies, calling them boring, like the things I enjoyed were beneath her. Sometimes she'd even joke about my looks, saying I wasn't exactly her type, but at least I was safe. I laughed it off back then. I told myself every couple has playful teasing, and that if I just proved myself, she'd see how much I loved her. I buried the sting of those words under the hope that our future together was worth it. I convinced myself that loyalty could heal disrespect, that patience could erase cruelty. But I was wrong. I told myself those were harmless jokes, but soon, those little jabs turned into open wounds I couldn't ignore. The first time she embarrassed me in front of our friends, I brushed it off as a slip of the tongue. We were out at dinner, a cozy little spot we often went to with another couple. Conversation drifted to careers, and when someone asked me about my job, I spoke with pride. I'd worked hard to build stability, and I was content. But she leaned back in her chair, smirked, and said, "Oh, him? He's the safe, boring option. Reliable, sure, but not exactly exciting." The table chuckled nervously, forks clinking awkwardly against plates, and my chest tightened. I laughed weakly, pretending it didn't sting. Inside, I felt small. To her, it was just a joke. To me, it was another crack in the wall of respect I thought we shared. Her flirtation grew bolder. At parties, I'd see her leaning in too close to other men, laughing just a little too hard at their stories. Her hand would brush their arm casually, and when I asked her about it later, she'd roll her eyes. "Relax, it's just harmless fun. Don't be so insecure." She said it like I was the problem, as if my discomfort was proof that I wasn't man enough. I started noticing the secrecy too. Her phone, once left on the counter without a second thought, was now glued to her hand. When I'd ask where she was going on those late nights, she'd throw out vague excuses. "Just a girl's night. Don't wait up." She started dressing differently for those outings. More makeup, shorter dresses, and a confidence that seemed reserved for everywhere but home. Each time I questioned her, she turned it back on me. "You're imagining things," she'd snap. "God, you're so paranoid. Can't I just have fun without you breathing down my neck?" And somehow, she always managed to twist it until I felt guilty for even asking. The final straw before everything came crashing down happened at another pool gathering. Neighbors lounged in chairs, kids splashed in the water, and the atmosphere was light. Until she saw him, the pool boy. Tall, fit, tan from the sun. She didn't whisper this time. She practically announced it. "Now that's a real man." The laughter that followed wasn't even funny laughter. It was nervous, uncomfortable. People glanced at me, waiting to see if I'd explode, but I didn't. I swallowed the bitterness like poison, forcing a smile that didn't reach my eyes. My pride crumbled silently inside me while she basked in the spotlight of her cruelty. I told myself maybe she was stressed, maybe she was trying to get attention, maybe it was all just bad humor. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't love anymore. It was mockery dressed as a marriage. And then came the night when the truth finally exploded in my face. It was a Thursday evening, one of those rare days when I managed to cut out of work early. I remember driving home with a quiet sense of satisfaction, thinking maybe I'd surprise her with dinner, or at least enjoy a few hours together. But as soon as I stepped out of the car, I heard it, the sound of voices drifting from the backyard, muffled at first, then clearer as I got closer. I paused. One of them was hers, high-pitched and playful. The other, deeper, unfamiliar, with a smooth confidence I hadn't heard before. My stomach dropped before my brain could even catch up. I crept closer to the sliding glass door and peered out. There she was, my wife, lounging by the pool, giggling like a schoolgirl. Sitting next to her, leaning in just a little too close, was the tall pool boy she had mocked me with not once, but twice before. His grin said it all. Their knees nearly touched, and her hand rested casually on her wine glass as she leaned into him like he was her partner, not me. And then I heard it, the words that sliced through me like a blade. I could do so much better than my husband. Look at you. My vision blurred for a second, anger and heartbreak colliding in a way I'd never felt before. I slid open the door, and both of them turned their heads. She didn't even look guilty. She smirked. "Oh, hey," she said casually, like I just interrupted a friendly chat. I walked out slowly, forcing myself to keep calm, though every part of me wanted to scream. "Really?" I asked, voice low, steady. "That's how you talk about me when I'm not around?" She didn't flinch. Instead, she threw her head back and laughed. "Oh, come on, don't be so dramatic. You're pathetic for eavesdropping like that." She glanced at the pool boy, as if inviting him in on the joke. "I was joking, you can't even take a joke. No wonder no one respects you." That was it. Something inside me snapped, but not the way she expected. For the first time in years, I didn't swallow the insult. I didn't let her twist it into my fault. I stood taller, steadier, and I looked her dead in the eyes. "You think this is a joke?" I said, my voice cutting through the air. "You've humiliated me in front of friends, mocked me in public, flirted openly while I stood right there. And now this. You've turned our marriage into a stage for your cruelty. Well, here's the truth. You've destroyed it." Her smirk faltered, just slightly, before she crossed her arms. "Oh, please, you're overreacting. You always overreact." But this time, her words didn't land. I saw them for what they were: deflections, lies, manipulation. And I wasn't the only one. Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed movement. Curtains shifting, a gate creaking. Neighbors were peeking over fences, curious about the raised voices. They were hearing every word. The pool boy looked uncomfortable now, glancing between us like he'd suddenly realized he was standing in the middle of a marriage's implosion. My wife, however, still tried to salvage her dominance. "You're embarrassing yourself," she hissed under her breath, as if that would shut me up. But I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I was done. "No," I told her firmly. "You've been embarrassing me for years. Tonight, I'm just finally calling it what it is." The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint splashing of the pool filter. She stared at me, eyes narrowing, her face hardening in a way I hadn't seen before. It wasn't shame, it wasn't regret, it was anger. And in that moment, I realized the story wasn't over. But her reaction to being exposed was even darker than I imagined. The fallout started almost immediately after that night. Word spread faster than I expected. Neighbors talked, whispers circled, and within days, it seemed like everyone knew what had gone down by the pool. At first, I dreaded the attention, but then something surprising happened. People began reaching out. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months messaged me privately. "We always thought she treated you horribly. You deserve so much better." Another wrote, "I wanted to say something before, but I didn't think it was my place. I'm glad you finally saw it for yourself." Even her own family got involved. Her sister, who had always been cordial but distant, admitted, "We saw her arrogance, but we didn't want to interfere. Honestly, we wondered how long you'd put up with it." Hearing that hurt, but it also validated what I'd been feeling all along. I wasn't imagining things. I wasn't weak. I had been enduring something toxic. And then came the online side of it. A close friend encouraged me to share my story on Reddit, an anonymous space, just to get it off my chest. I wrote everything, from the humiliating poolside jokes to the final confrontation. Within hours, comments poured in. She's a classic narcissist. She'll never take accountability. You're NTA. She's been gaslighting you the whole time. The pool boy actually did you a favor by exposing how low she'd stoop. I read those comments late into the night, scrolling through hundreds of strangers who didn't know me but seemed to understand me better than the woman I married. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel crazy. I realized my loyalty had been weaponized against me. Every time I tried to love her harder, she used it as another chance to tear me down. That weight, the constant second-guessing, the guilt she poured onto me, it began to lift, and in its place, something new started to grow. Clarity. Clarity that I had wasted years trying to please someone who was never going to see my worth. The anger that once felt like shame began to transform into something sharper, more focused. I wasn't just going to walk away from her cruelty. I wasn't going to let her think she could laugh at my pain and move on like nothing happened. And that's when I decided it was time for my epic revenge. The very next morning, I called a lawyer. There was no dramatic showdown, no shouting match, no begging her to change. I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I handed her the divorce papers with a calmness she didn't expect. For once, she was the one caught off guard. She tried to laugh it off at first, claiming I was being too sensitive. But when she realized I was serious, her smile vanished. She begged, then raged, then tried to flip the script, but I didn't flinch. I'd given her years of loyalty, and she'd repaid me with humiliation. Now, my only words to her were simple. We're done. In court, she tried to play the victim. She spun tales about me being controlling, insecure, unable to handle her personality. But the evidence of her arrogance and public disrespect was undeniable. Witnesses, our neighbors, even her own family, painted the real picture. The mask she wore for so long finally slipped, and everyone saw who she truly was. My revenge wasn't loud or messy. It was quiet, dignified, and final. I walked away without a single look back. And while she scrambled to hold onto appearances, I rebuilt myself. I poured energy into my career, into my health, into friendships I had neglected. Slowly, I felt life return to me. Months later, word reached me. The pool boy was long gone. She was alone, her arrogance no longer amusing without someone to feed off. Meanwhile, I was thriving, respected, supported, free. And that's the truth about revenge. It isn't screaming or fighting. It's walking away, healing, and living so well that the person who tried to break you becomes nothing more than a forgotten chapter. Because in the end, my wife traded away the one thing she could never get back.